Hi everyone, welcome to Weekly Vet from Business School of AI. Weekly Vet is our happy place to share, learn, discuss, and explore. Weekly Vet occurs every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'm your host, Yashaswini Vishwanath, and you can call me Yash. I'm logging from Bangalore, India, and I would like to know where you're all from. Please type away your name and location in the chat. We would like to get to know you better. I'm an AI researcher who focuses on responsible AI. I'm also pursuing my master's in AI from RACE. At Weekly Vet, we empower and enable the students to break into AI and to explore more of it. Generally, we host speakers from varied backgrounds working on AI and allied technologies. And today, we have a very special session with our star speaker, Pamela Gupta. Pamela Gupta is a business and cybersecurity thought leader and practitioner helping clients create an AI strategy to deliver value and trust for building and implementing AI. She is the founder of Advancing Trust in AI, and she is the chair of IEEE subcommittee on AI cybersecurity. She is the chair of IEEE subcommittee on IoT cybersecurity, and she is a founding member of IoT SF. She has this amazing experience of 25 plus years where she has many holistic initiatives for Fortune 500 companies. Welcome, Pamela Gupta. We are so honored to have you here. And today, generally, I host and I ask questions to the speaker. And today we have Mirko Ross, who has really accepted to join us and makes this session all the more special. Mirko Ross is a passionate entrepreneur with Essence.io. Cybersecurity is his mission. He wants to make IoT a safer place. So some of them call him an influencer, but he calls him a networker and a hub as he likes to share and inspire. So Mirko Ross is a cybersecurity researcher, and he's somebody who takes care of the cyberspace from trust management towards AI-based cyber defense. Welcome, Mirko Ross. We are so thankful for having you as the interviewer today. And Pamela Gupta, welcome to the session. The floor is all yours.
I invited Mirko specifically to talk to Pamela because Pamela, I always brag about my students, and Pamela is my student. But even before she became my student, she is this known expert in cybersecurity space. She advises the US government, being part of NIST standard body as an advisor. And so I thought we need somebody who knows her world of cybersecurity and can be a match to get us the best questions to drive this conversation. And Mirko joins us from Germany, and he is the one person who actually got me thinking identity, what it matters, how to get identity of user in a privacy preserving way. So with that, I won't take too much time. Both of you are here, and Mirko, you can take away and drive the discussion. Thank you very much.
No, it's perfect, and thank you very much for everybody watching us, and as well, thank you, Pamela, for joining this conversation. So, and I know Pamela as well because we had previous as well a very good conversation about AI. So I really appreciate it. So let's come into the topic. So, I mean, of course, we are talking a lot. I mean, cybersecurity is the hot topic of our time, isn't it? Because all what we are doing in digitalization, at the end, cybersecurity, trust is the foundation for everything we are using. And then I see as well the industry, a lot of players in the industry say, well, AI will be one key element or building block to increase the security in the digital transformation. So it will be one additional key element. But however, I see a lot of AI printed, let's say, on the brochures and on the marketing material, but how much AI do we really have currently in cybersecurity, or how much AI do we need in cybersecurity, Pamela?
Thank you, Mirko, and it's a pleasure to talk to you again. And Yash, thank you for the intro. So I'll go ahead and give you a view on what is kind of trying to demystify, right, Mirko? I mean, that's really where you're going. There are AI. If AI is a buzzword, and if cybersecurity is a known area, a complex area, but it's a known area, and yet it is a buzzword in some ways, right? How do you combine these two really complex areas and establish the way forward, which is secure? And we understand what AI is and how can we secure it, what IoT is, how can we secure it, what is identity, right? Those are the areas that I'm thinking we're going to be talking about. Let me know where you want to start.
No, that's perfect. And let's start with, let's say, one of my theses. Overall, I think AI is great. We need AI in the cybersecurity space as well, or let's take identity spaces, because it's all about dealing with large data and how to optimize and automate analytics on data. I mean, that's one of the main outcomes there.
Okay.
However, the question is, we have already complex systems. Now we are adding AI on top. So we are adding more complexity to all of these systems. And towards cybersecurity, my question to you is, how can we handle that? If we have already a complex system, which is vulnerable, and we are adding another complex system to fix the problems, but we are creating a more complex system, do we really get this promised better situation afterwards, or it's just getting more and more stuck in our complexity?
I think that is a good start, definitely. So in my 25 years of doing creating risk-based security programs for Fortune 500 companies, I've learned one thing. There is you cannot rest on your laurels, saying, well, thinking that we have already seen these threat vectors, or we've seen this risk, or we know the business. This is a dynamic area, and bringing the complexity factor is only adding to that dynamic nature even more, correct? Because now, our objectives are still the same. However, the technology we are adopting and the technology itself has complexity that we are adopting, which did not really exist in the I would say, traditional system space. So if you put in X for a system, you get Y out as the output. That was the intended outcome. Why is this complex? And let me just step back. All right. First thing I want to talk about is when we're talking about artificial intelligence and we're talking about solving cybersecurity issues, if you do a search, let me actually ask you, if you do a search for cybersecurity and AI, the plethora of search results you will get is really how to solve for AI, using AI for cybersecurity problems, such as for pattern recognition, such as for aberrant problems on your behavior on your network. What we have to really understand, though, remember that complexity we're talking about. Where is that complexity coming from? Let me talk a little bit about that for cybersecurity. To quote National Security Commission on AI, which is a public-private partnership, we are looking at 3 different columns or vectors, 3 different distinct areas when it comes to AI and cybersecurity. All right. One is using AI, you can actually have a much deeper penetration of your existing threat vector. All right. So by that, you can think about malware, for example, or spam. These are existing AI protective mechanisms in place for counteracting spam and also for phishing email, etc. Without AI, we would not be able to resolve that. However, it's the reverse side, the yin and yang of this, right? All these 3 columns, right? Is that you can actually use AI to make a self-replicating AI-generated malware. So it becomes a cat and mouse game. It's AI against AI, right? So that's one, all right? The other is, what are the threats from AI systems? What are the new threat vectors that AI itself is generating? Which would be, to give you an example of that, would be things like GANs or deepfakes. All right, deepfakes is something I've written about. Also, it's a blog. I'm happy to send you a link to that. And also, there is ample information on that, on what deepfakes are. But I will just tell you one thing, and because we don't have time to go into the internals of deepfakes, one of the common ways of generating deepfakes, which is an AI, very much AI related entity or creation, is GANs, what I call GANs, and that stands for generative adversarial networks. I'm sorry, I don't have my notes here, but I'm going by memory. GAN stands for Generative Adversarial Network. Okay, and again, what it is an AI system for AI. It's basically a machine learning model for creating um, a reality where you cannot differentiate between what is the original and what is the outcome, what is the product. Okay, so to give you an example, that can, when you think about it, you may have seen some deepfake videos on President Obama had released, there was one released for him. There's one on President Trump. There was one in Myanmar, actually, which actually caused genocide. There was a controversial video, which was a video which actually caused genocide. And they said was a deep fake, but was really not a deep fake. Okay. So in the right hands or in the wrong hands, AI, we know the existence of, there is a propensity or a capability to produce deepfakes, and you can go either way, in other words. All right, so we'll come back to that because I know we want to talk a little bit about identity and AI. The third area that is also extremely complex, just because these are very complex systems, are what is the security of the AI systems as they are being built, all right? Now, AI system, we throw it as an umbrella term. It is not one system. The AI is not one technology. It can be machine learning, it can be vision, computer vision, it can be robotics, can be natural language processing. So there are various areas under AI, and each one will carry its own threat model. And I have created a threat model actually for machine learning, for natural language processing when it comes to security. So the area is complex. We will not be able to cover even a iota of that right now, but I just want you to know these three things, okay? How AI can be used to increase the existing threat vectors, how it can create new threat vectors, and how AI itself, how AI systems themselves can be, if they are compromised, if they're not built properly, are going to be very hard to detect. This is not your typical system development. So that's why this is such a complex area.
Yeah,
This is the cybersecurity of AI, right?
But let's step in, because your examples are really great if you look for identity and the question of identity. So we know for many processes we have that the digital identity, I mean, it's maybe the most important thing to run digital business, one, and it's mostly the most sensitive part as well, because the digital identity is the root for everything what we are doing. And then we have this identity systems who are based on, let's say, two-factor or multi-factor authentication, where you do a proof of an identity by using a video and a voice managed control mechanism. I mean, it's not a single factor, but it's one important factor, that people are live on a video stream and they are reacting with the agent on the other side to do the authentication stuff, for example. Now the question is, in your scenario, if deepfake is getting so perfect, and we see it on voice, on natural language processing, it's really almost, I think, super perfect. I mean, there's so much progress on that. We know on video, it's a little bit harder. So it's still sometimes there are crazy errors in the deepfakes, like the number of teeth or stuff like that. You can identify it's a deepfake. But however, the technology is getting much better. So if voice is getting better, if natural language processing is getting better, if video is getting better, is it then, to be honest, that we need to say, well, whatever we do to define identities, we should not go to any procedures where additional technology layers can be built in as a man in the middle. And maybe we need other ways to define an identity, because maybe it's as well a paradigm shift. Because doing that by video, I mean, this is the paradigm from the past. That's how we had approved identities. Now we are trying to digitalize it. We put in, but maybe it's the wrong way to do that.
Right. So I think it's important two things are important here, right? One is customer experience. That you want to make things simple for the customer. You want to have the ultimate good experience, and there's a lot of business impact of that. So, for example, if you as an organization or a customer-facing organization, let's say you're a bank, it doesn't have to be. It could be a cosmetic company, all right? My point being, this is across the board. You want the customer to come to have a pleasant experience. The more convenient it is, and remember, convenience and security opposites, right? Polar opposites. You cannot have if you want to have a secure password for the most basic thing, right? Let's just go back right to the start with the ABC. A simple password versus a complex password. Think about the user experience there, right? Now you have to remember multiple passwords, or, and the complexity, or you forget it, and now you have to go get your password reset, for example, all right? Because if we are talking about identities, let's take a look at what is the impact of that, right? So you want to, even with a simple thing as a password, that can become a very lengthy, laborious, irritating process, and companies will try to make that easier so good user experience. So similarly for digitized identity, if we are going to go beyond a simple, you call in for your Optimum or your cable provider, and you want them to have a record of everything you have talked to them about, then there's that privacy concerns come in, security concerns come in, and if the company has to now look at all that and see what is the service they're going to provide to you, how much can they use, how much more information that they have can be a better experience for the customer, is what I'm getting at. But if it's not privatized, or if we don't have the right technology, it can become a bad experience, right? Because either it can be compromised, or it may not just be usable, or and so you get the flow there, the drift there. So why would AI or deepfake become a consideration for a deployed technology? That's what the question comes to, correct? So why would you even want to go to voice authentication in an IVR?
Exactly.
Right, okay. So the problem there is, once they have, it would, in no scenario, in no higher risk scenario, would you only have a voice authentication as your only way of getting access, all right? it would be a part of the second factor or the multiple factors, regardless of even if it's a bank versus a access to a nuclear weapon. Okay, regardless of the risk profile, you would not be using voice or a biometric as the only way of authentication. It's always a question of multi-factor authentication is question of what do you have and what do you know, and so it goes beyond um, um, device authentication, right? Voice now, this is introducing a new paradigm, and you want to have a good experience. You already authenticated the customer, let's say through you send them an SMS, text message, or you send them an email, and it's a compromised email account. You have the email. They say it is. They validated that this is the code they have because they have the email. Now you can see where a voice authentication now, because it's the second factor, it can, if it's a good, and I have done a proof of concept on it, created actually with free source tools, created a voice GAN from a video recording of, in this case, it was Elon Musk. Then this is obviously, I was doing it as a proof of concept. We were doing it as a proof of concept, but based on a video recording, and we are here on a video recording, right? We are out there. There's ample data that can be used depending on if somebody wanted to compromise a particular account, and that person has a public profile and they're speaking in public. In this case, Elon Musk had a TED talk where there was no background noise, and we were able to get real samples. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. We were able to get voice samples and use that to create a voice GAN, all right? A deep fake. Now, is it a good deep fake? No, but this was using freeware and free open source tools, right? But depending on the motivation of the perpetrator, right? Depending if it's state sponsored, for example, or if it's somebody with very deep pockets, this would not be a free source tool. And why would you want to use, and how would you be able to use deepfake? Because it goes back to the question of the premise of a good user experience. You have authenticated them in other ways. Now, the ultimate authentication, and if it's a high risk profile, let's say Elon Musk has a big bank account, I hope he does, or whoever the target may be, right? To target them, to use that voice GAN, that is another threat vector. So we have to kind of really be aware of not only the existing paradigms for security, cybersecurity, and ways of combating it or counteracting it. This will continue to be a cat and mouse game unless we are proactive, right? Unless we take a look at it holistically. And remember that third area I was talking about of how are we building out, secure AI systems. If we have a system that we can confidently say from a product perspective that this has been built with the right threat models and the threat factors and vectors being considered during development, so it is impervious to a deep fake, for example, for voice, then the equation and that conversation changes then, right? That is where we are not at, but that's where we want to be.
Now, an interesting question from a transatlantic perspective, from a European to a US.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, do we need regulation in that space? Do we need to regulate how AI should be used so that we have the ability to run sanctions if AI is not used in that framing? Of course, we know in cybersecurity that there are players who don't care about regulations and stuff like that, but for everything which is going on on the regular way in our society where AI has been used? Should we regulate it? For example, should we simply say, well, it's not allowed to apply deepfakes?
So, of course, I agree with you, but the problem is if it is very obvious, right? If it is, for example, and this is where it becomes a sticky and a slippery slope, Mirko. So I would not say yes, a clear cut yes. Okay, I'm going to say we have to really, really think through this. Okay, and it is not a silver bullet. Regulation obviously is not a silver bullet. By the time they even create something which is a meaningful regulation, we are not going to be, nobody's holding the development of systems that's already ongoing and it's going ahead. So by the time regulations even come down the pipe, how effective are they going to be and how meaningful are they going to be? So I have given a talk on this, all right? And I will tell you that regulation is part of that holistic approach and that toolkit that we're looking at to develop these systems or to even implement them, right? These systems and these variables will be, or threat, the considerations rather of it should be responsible, it should be responsibly deployed, it should be transparently developed, it should be trustworthy, should be secure, right? These are the principles that we are all aiming for, but cannot be a one size fits all. There is no silver bullet for it. Just because there's nothing simple about this. But if you had to really, really push me into corner and say, yes, we need something here, that would be, I would say, it would be required. It would be necessary at a high level, but it is not going to be enough to prevent the kind of damage we can see. That we need a little bit, we need a concerted approach. We need regulations. We need a proactive and not reactive, because we cannot go back and fix things. It has to be, the legality has to be in place, of course, right? As to who all owns what the onus is on and who the onus is on for developing systems, deploying them. But it's not going to be that simple. So just to move back to this IVR example, in this case, I'm saying that deepfakes will be used to actually attack a deployed system, not to help prevent the issue, right? Or not to help prevent a unauthenticated or a wrongly authenticated actor from accessing the systems and whatever they are going in for.
But I have a very good example on that, because I know there is a company out there. What they're doing is they are using AI to optimize your video screen and appearance on video conferences. It sounds a little bit crazy, but what they're doing is so we have now our video stream, or what they're doing with AI, they are optimizing our appearance there. And to me, it's a deepfake technology. So, okay, it's used for good, or for, let's say, however, a purpose which is not a purpose of attacking or cheating other systems or people. But however, it could be used, but it's a typical dual-use technology. You can, of course, easily use it as well for other reasons. Now the question is, to me, it seems a very heavy use of AI, because this is fundamentally scratching on topics like trust. So, I mean, we are now on a video conference, and one of the most important things I like is that I'm talking to Pamela, and I know it's you. And I know there is no AI in between who is trying to reshape our appearance or whatever. And at the end, I know it's you. It's all about trust. So is this the way of usage of technology where we maybe are getting trapped because it's the back doors for deepfakes?
I don't think so. I really think it is a question. Look, I'll tell you, Marco, there is a social media company right now, right, which is deployed on basically every teen's device, all right, which is offering openly deepfakes. Okay, that bothers me, right? That is something that can be that regulators can play a hand in regulating, okay, and making sure it's not done for harm, all right. But people are already applying these filters, and this is not even new. This is I think, 2 years old, and I feel almost dated because I don't use this technology, but I know what all they're doing just because I do have a teenager. You can change your appearance. You can change your what your virtual persona is, and in real time, so that you can look different and appear different. Now, that is, I think, a more insidious and a more heinous, kind of a more I won't say strange, but it's a very strange offering. But it's not a good for from so many different levels, whether it's psychological, that you don't like the way you look, so you're going to look you want to look your perfect self, etc. This is yes, I agree with you. When it comes to things that are altering what you are looking at, that, or what the actual the events are, how it's playing out, the actual flow, that is problematic, and it should be regulated. And then to your point earlier of Europe and USA, looking at what is regulated in AI, how can it be regulated? There's clearly, I've done a talk on this in terms of the risk-based aspect. What is a risk-based development of AI or implementation? Therefore, that is certain things. If you are in a particular area that is considered high risk, you would not be able to do any development at all using AI, using machine learning, using whatever systems of AI. There are such as social credit systems. Okay, those are not allowed in the democratic side of the world. Okay, but there are other areas too, which are, for example, facial recognition, which can be heavily intrusive, right? So there are regulations that will be useful, but my point is they will be useful, but we can still get threats and risk from them kind of flying in under the radar, because the regulation would have to be so specific to cover each and every risk, and that's not going to be possible.
And,
right.
and facial recognition is a very good example, because we have seen
right.
in the past so much bias in facial recognition. There are many reasons for the bias. One is, let's say, bad architecture design, bad data design, and whatever, and sometimes maybe as well for purpose. I think that the main problem here is that we need somehow agreement what is a trustworthy AI, and
right.
how do we define trustworthy AI. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so my focus on the past couple of years has been on creating trusted AI. And for me, that means, or like I said through the interview, taking a holistic way of designing a system. Whether it is building AI or whether it is deploying AI, you would still need to know, you would have to have, and it's an absolute must. So I can't stress that enough, to know what you are going in for, what is the intended outcome, be able to explicitly define what are you trying to achieve, right? And how is the system going to achieve it? So, for example, before I go into an example, we do obviously need some guidance and frameworks. I had taken a stab at creating a framework, all right, because I have been a practitioner, I mentioned, for 25 years, creating risk-based programs and trying to convince business that they need to, what is the risk coming from, where is the risk coming from, what do they need to do in order to obtain their objectives, all right. Long time doing this, and from a technical, governance, and a management perspective. So I understand where what the threat, the complexity landscape looks like. All right. So when I started looking at AI systems, it's not enough to just secure them, because you can do threat modeling of where the data poisoning can happen, where the risk can data bias can come in. Even, for example, you can have full control of your ML model. Let's just say it's machine learning. Okay, that's the one we're talking about. When it comes to trust, now you want to be able to make sure that it's not just secure, as in your data can be poisoned, for example. And I don't have time to go into that. We won't go into that right now, because it's a very lengthy topic of machine learning and data poisoning and inversion model. What are the machine learning threat models? All right. Even if you have that pat down, it's not enough to create a system of trust, because it's not a system. I should back up. It is not enough to say that this system is going to do what I want it to do. Okay. Because of what you mentioned earlier, if there is biased data, that's typically not something a developer is going to be looking at. And developer, by the way, in the new world of AI development, is not going to be your average Python programmer. Okay, it's going to be a multi-stakeholder team that involves a data scientist and a programmer at best, and a program manager who needs to understand where, from the business perspective, brings in that perspective from, let's say, these three entities there. Now, just to say that you have scrubbed the data of privacy concerns, that you have no security issues, that still is not enough, because the data scientists are not looking at the point of origin of data, for example, right? They're not concerned, or when they're looking at creating functionality, they're not looking at it holistically in terms of what is the business objective or the organizational objective. We talked about facial recognition. All right, let's just take an example. Let's walk that use case through. Facial recognition. Oh God, I have to go. You're deploying it for entry point of a shopping plaza. All right, and that shopping plaza is owned by a private entity. Okay, all right. So just to kind of set the stage, you have facial recognition there, because if you define it for a government, it's a whole different thing. Okay. Now you have facial recognition cameras that are doing facial recognition to identify, people who may be, for whatever reason, you have that so that you can spot if somebody's stealing things or somebody's doing things that they should not be. It's a public area. Now, if you are just looking at, for example, facial recognition in terms of from a security perspective, in this case, make sure that it is not, you can't poison the data, you can't infiltrate and pass it any data which is not in your original data set. You could still take that data that's coming out of there, the machine learning, when you apply it in a facial recognition model, ML model, you could do a wrong classification, because now the data that came in is, and this I'm talking about a real example that happened in New Jersey, where there was this Black guy who was arrested, and he was through facial recognition software, they identified that he was stealing candy or something ridiculous. And it was a very low price item. By that I mean, and it was determined that he went and he objected, and he said, I was not at that point of where you're saying that this happened, the location. And he challenged the system, and the court then found out that the images that were classified were not a true match. Okay, they were not even him. So it was an erroneous classification. So this is not security by itself that can be enough. In other words, right? Your data is okay. There's no poisoning of the data. It was not corrupted, but the way the data was trained, for example, in this case, is the issue. And that would not fall under your security paradigm, right? So if you want to put in trust into this model, you really have to take a look at that entire life cycle of what is the objective, right? Starting from the beginning, what is the business objective? What is the organizational objective of the system? What is the data bias, of course, right? There are ample tools out there, I will tell you, which are freeware tools to look at, to determine bias in data, okay? Privacy and security are an aspect of that. And then integrity is something, so it goes beyond security. So taking a look at that, then I realized that just having a security and privacy is not going to be enough. So that's the model I was referring to that I created called AI TIPS. And it stands for artificial intelligence, transparency, integrity, privacy, and security, for building out these systems, for building trustworthy systems and integrating security and privacy and trust from start to finish, because it's not something that can be done by a technical team. It's definitely a multi-stakeholder team that will get involved in creating this. And oh, by the way, that will determine what is the risk domain. Okay. And honestly, if you have all this sorted out at the beginning, you really don't need regulations to tell you that you are doing the right thing or you're not, or provide that guardrails. But if there are areas that can be in slightly gray areas, I think that's where regulation can be really important in making sure that we stay on track as we are creating and deploying.
No, great, Pamela, and I think we have a lot of links as well. Then we need to post here in the show notes so that people can follow up on your work, and I think this is super important. And let me try a little bit to sum up our conversation. So it seems to be like that we are on a paradigm shift. So we can't use our old methods and apply them on AI. So we need to rethink some stuff, in particular, for example, for identity with the respect of deepfakes. We need to rethink that really freshly to get the right answers, to have future-proof concepts out there. As well, I think, like from your previous words, that we need to rethink as well how we design trustworthy AI. And I mean, you have given some answers on that, which are super interesting and I think worth to be on the show notes. And by that, thank you very much for the conversation. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, Pamela. It's really superb, and I enjoyed the conversation, and I hope the people out there as well. If you have any questions, just post them, and I think very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco. I love talking to you. So you are so informed, and I would love to interview you actually and pick your brain. So I'd love to do that. Let's set that up next time, maybe.
Yeah, good.